The sun hung low on the horizon, casting an amber glow over the vast expanse of prairie that stretched endlessly in every direction. A lone wagon sat abandoned amidst a sea of tall grasses, swaying gently in the breeze. The creaking sound of its wooden wheels as they shifted slightly in the wind was the only noise breaking the silence of the plains. But this silence wasn't peaceful, it was heavy, oppressive, as if the land itself held its breath. For miles around, there were no signs of life except for a faint trail leading away from the wagon, worn into the earth by countless boots and hooves. It seemed like a relic of some forgotten journey, left behind without explanation. Yet something about it felt wrong. Too still, too quiet. And then, nestled beneath the overturned canvas cover of the wagon, was the unmistakable shape of a small figure. She stirred, her tiny frame barely visible against the rugged backdrop of the Wild West. Her cries were soft at first, almost drowned out by the rustling grass, but they grew louder with each passing moment. She was alone, completely vulnerable to whatever dangers lurked in the wilderness. Little did she know, however, that nature had already begun weaving its own protective web around her. Days earlier, the trail had been alive with activity. A caravan of wagons moved steadily across the open plain, their occupants bound for new beginnings in territories yet untamed. Among them was a young mother named Clara, whose face bore the weight of worry lines far deeper than her years should have allowed. Her baby girl, wrapped snugly in a quilt stitched with faded patterns of flowers, slept soundly in her arms as Clara gazed out upon the endless horizon. Clara's husband, Daniel, rode ahead on horseback, his sharp eyes scanning for threats. They were not foolish enough to believe their path would be free of danger. Stories of raiders prowling these lands were all too common. Whispered tales passed around campfires late into the night. But despite the warnings, hope burned brightly within their hearts. Each mile closer to their destination brought dreams of safety, prosperity, and freedom. But fate has a way of twisting even the most carefully laid plans. As dusk fell, dark clouds rolled in, bringing with them a storm unlike any the settlers had seen before. Lightning forked through the sky, illuminating the landscape in jagged flashes, while thunder boomed so loudly it shook the very ground beneath their feet. Panic set in as the winds picked up, tearing apart tents and sending debris flying everywhere. It was during one particularly violent gust that tragedy struck. One of the wagons broke loose from its tether, rolling uncontrollably down a steep incline. Inside, Clara clutched her daughter tightly, praying against the odds that they would survive. When the chaos finally subsided, she found herself separated from the rest of the caravan, stranded miles away from help. Her cries echoed through the night as she searched desperately for familiar faces, her voice raw with desperation. Hours turned into days, and still no rescuers came. Exhaustion claimed her body, and hunger gnawed at her insides. By the time she collapsed beside the now stationary wagon, her strength was nearly gone. All she could do was leave her child safe beneath the canvas, hoping against hope that anyone would find them. And so, the little girl remained, her wails piercing the emptiness of the prairie. Farther west, where the land began to rise into gentle hills dotted with sagebrush, another group traveled cautiously under the watchful eye of their leader, John Carter. He was a man hardened by years spent navigating the perils of the frontier, his weathered face lined with scars both physical and emotional. His men respected him, not because he demanded it, but because he earned it. Time and again, he'd proven himself capable of guiding them safely through situations that would have broken lesser souls. Yet even John couldn't shake the unease settling in his gut as they ventured deeper into uncharted territory. Tales of hostile tribes and marauding bandits filled the air like smoke from a distant fire, impossible to ignore. Still duty called, and he pressed onward, determined to deliver his cargo, a shipment of supplies destined for a struggling settlement, to its rightful owners. It was near sunset when one of the scouts returned, his expression grim. "Tracks," the man reported tersely. "Fresh ones. Looks like they split off from a larger group." John nodded slowly, his mind racing through possibilities. Raiders? Tribesmen? Or perhaps remnants of a lost caravan? Whatever the case, caution dictated they investigate further. Leading his party toward the indicated location, he soon spotted the abandoned wagon silhouetted against the fading light. At first glance, it appeared empty, save for scattered remnants of belongings strewn about the area. But then, a sound reached his ears, one so incongruous with the desolation surrounding him that it froze him in place. Crying. High-pitched, desperate crying. He approached cautiously, his hand resting lightly on the hilt of his revolver. Peering beneath the canvas, he discovered the source of the noise. A baby, no older than a few months, staring up at him with wide, tear-filled eyes. For a long moment, John simply stared back, stunned by the surreal sight. Then gently, he lifted the infant into his arms, cradling her close as though afraid she might vanish if he let go. "Who are you?" he murmured softly, though he knew the child wouldn't understand. Around him, his men exchanged wary glances, their fingers hovering near their weapons. This was no ordinary discovery. It carried implications none of them wanted to consider. As the hours passed, the reality of their situation became clearer. Whoever had been traveling with the baby must have met with disaster, perhaps ambushed or forced to flee. Either way, survival for the child depended entirely on the mercy of strangers. John resolved to take her with them, knowing full well the additional burden it placed on their already tenuous journey. But just as they prepared to depart, a strange phenomenon unfolded before their eyes. From the distance, a massive herd of bison emerged, their thunderous stampede shaking the ground beneath their feet. At first, panic gripped the group, fearing the animals might trample them without hesitation. But instead, the bison encircled the wagon, creating a living barrier between it and the world beyond. To everyone's astonishment, the beasts acted almost protectively. Their movements were deliberate, their presence unwavering. Even as the humans watched in disbelief, the bison refused to move, standing firm as though guarding something or someone of great importance. "What does it mean?" one of John's men asked, his voice tinged with awe. "I don't know," John admitted, though deep down he suspected more than coincidence was at play. Legend spoke of spirits lingering in the wilds, watching over those deemed worthy. Could it be possible that such forces were at work here? Night descended quickly, cloaking the land in darkness punctuated only by the twinkling stars above. Beneath the blanket of celestial light, the caravan settled reluctantly, unable to continue until the mystery of the bison herd unraveled itself. The baby, now calm in John's care, gurgled softly, oblivious of the tension swirling around her. It wasn't until dawn broke that the truth revealed itself. Hidden among the remnants of the wagon was a journal, its pages yellowed with age but remarkably intact. Within its entries lay clues pointing to a shocking revelation. The baby wasn't merely an orphan child. She was the daughter of a prominent family, kidnapped years ago during a brutal attack on their homestead. Somehow, she'd managed to evade capture, only to end up lost and alone once more. John read the words aloud, his voice steady despite the turmoil churning inside him. The others listened intently, their expressions shifting from disbelief to determination. If what the journal said was true, finding the child's true home and ensuring her safety became their mission. Weeks later, after traversing treacherous terrain and evading numerous threats, the group arrived at the gates of a sprawling ranch nestled in the foothills of the Rockies. The resemblance between the property described in the journal and this very place was undeniable. With trembling hands, John presented the baby to the astonished couple who greeted them. "You've brought her back," the woman whispered, tears streaming down her cheeks as she embraced her long-lost daughter. Behind her, her husband stood rigid, his fists clenched as emotions warred within him. Relief, joy, anger, all coalesced into a single overwhelming wave. Little did they know, however, that the story didn't end there. For buried within the journal's final pages was a map, marked with symbols indicating hidden treasure rumored to belong to none other than the infamous outlaw Blackjack Cassidy. Whether intentional or accidental, the child's rescue had uncovered secrets far greater than anyone could have imagined. And so, the circle closed, but not before opening anew. The discovery of the map sent ripples through the group, though none dared speak aloud their thoughts. John Carter, ever the pragmatist, knew that such a revelation could either unite them in purpose or tear them apart with greed. He folded the map carefully and tucked it into his satchel, resolving to address its implications later. For now, the priority was ensuring the child's safe return to her rightful family. As the days turned into weeks, the ranch became a sanctuary for both the weary travelers and the newly reunited parents. The couple, whose names were Eleanor and Thomas Whitmore, had thought their daughter lost forever. They named her Lily, a name chosen in hope during the darkest times of their ordeal. Now, as they cradled her once more, the weight of years spent searching seemed to lift from their shoulders. Yet, beneath the surface of this newfound joy lay undercurrents of unease. The presence of Black Jack, Cassidy's treasure, if real, cast a shadow over the tranquility of the ranch. Tales of Cassidy's exploits were legendary. His daring heists, his knack for eluding capture, and his ruthless efficiency in eliminating anyone who crossed him. If word of the map reached the wrong ears, it could bring danger not only to the travelers, but also to the Whitmores themselves. Eleanor, sensing the tension in John's demeanor, approached him one evening as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of orange and purple. "Mr. Carter," she began, her voice soft yet firm, "we owe you more than words can express. But I must ask, what is it you found?" John hesitated, weighing his words carefully. "It's best if we don't dwell on it, ma'am. Some things are better left buried." Her gaze sharpened, undeterred by his evasiveness. "And yet, some things refuse to stay buried, don't they?" He sighed, acknowledging the truth in her statement. "There's a map," he admitted finally. "It points to something valuable, but it also points to trouble. More than we bargained for, perhaps." Thomas joined them then, having overheard the conversation. His jaw tightened as he processed the information. If this treasure exists, and if Cassidy or his men learn of it, they'll stop at nothing to claim it. We've already suffered enough because of that man's cruelty. I won't let history repeat itself." John nodded grimly. "That's why we need to decide what to do next. Keep it secret, destroy it, or—" He trailed off, unwilling to voice a third option. But then Eleanor interjected, her tone steady despite the turmoil within her. "What about those who might benefit from it? What if this treasure could help others? Families struggling, settlements in need. Would we deny them simply out of fear?" Her words struck a chord in John. She was right. Fear alone shouldn't dictate their actions. Yet, the path forward remained fraught with peril. "We'll discuss it further," he promised. "But for now, let's focus on rebuilding your life here. That's what truly matters." The following morning, the air carried a crispness that hinted at the changing seasons. The prairie stretched endlessly beyond the ranch, dotted with clusters of trees, an occasional stream winding lazily through the landscape. It was here, amidst the natural beauty of the land, that John and his men held a private meeting. "Whatever decision we make," John began, pacing slowly as he addressed his companions, "it has to be unanimous. This isn't just about us anymore. It affects everyone involved, including the Whitmores." One of the younger members of the group, a wiry man named Jake, spoke up eagerly. "Why not go after ourselves? We're skilled trackers, fighters even. If anyone can handle Cassidy's gang, it's us." Another man, older and wiser, shook his head. "And risk drawing their wrath down on innocent people? No, that'd be reckless. Better to leave well enough alone." John raised a hand to silence the growing debate. "Let's consider all angles before jumping to conclusions. First, we need to verify whether the map leads anywhere real. Second, we determine how much danger pursuing it would entail. And third, we weigh the potential benefits against the risks." His logic brought a semblance of order to the discussion, though tempers still flared occasionally. By the end of the day, they agreed to undertake a preliminary investigation. A small team would follow the map's directions discreetly, leaving the rest behind to protect the ranch and ensure Lily's safety. The journey took them deep into uncharted territory, where the terrain grew increasingly rugged. Mountains loomed ahead, their peaks dusted with snow even in early autumn. Rivers carved paths through the wilderness, their waters icy cold and treacherous to cross. Along the way, signs of Cassidy's presence emerged: burnt-out campsites, discarded weapons, and whispers from passing trappers who warned of encounters with his gang. Despite these warnings, the team pressed on, driven by a mix of curiosity and duty. As they neared the coordinates marked on the map, the atmosphere shifted subtly. The wind carried an electric charge, and the animals seemed unnerved, retreating deeper into the shadows of the forest. Then they found it, A hidden cave nestled within a rocky outcrop, its entrance obscured by thick vines. Inside, the walls glittered faintly in the dim light of their lanterns, reflecting the presence of gold and jewels beyond imagination. But alongside the wealth lay remnants of tragedy, bones, tattered clothing, and evidence of violence long past. "It's cursed," one of the men muttered, his voice trembling. "This place reeks of death." John didn't argue. Instead, he studied the scene carefully, piecing together the story written in blood and stone. Black Jack Cassidy hadn't merely hoarded riches. He claimed them through brutality, leaving no survivors to tell the tale. To take anything from this place would be to invite his wrath. Or worse, the wrath of whatever forces lingered here. Reluctantly, they retreated, bringing back only the knowledge of what they'd seen. When they returned to the ranch, their faces bore the marks of both triumph and sorrow. Eleanor listened intently as John recounted their findings, her expression thoughtful. "So it exists," she said finally. "But at what cost? Is any treasure worth the lives it demands?" John met her gaze, understanding dawning between them. "No," he replied firmly. "It isn't." In the end, they made the choice to leave the treasure untouched, sealing the cave's entrance with rocks and earth to prevent others from stumbling upon it. The map itself was burned, its secrets reduced to ashes scattered by the wind. Though the decision brought mixed reactions among the group, there was a shared sense of relief in knowing they'd done the right thing. For the Whitmores, life on the ranch resumed its rhythm, enriched by the presence of Lily and the bonds forged with John and his men. Together, they built a community rooted in trust and cooperation, standing strong against whatever challenges the Wild West threw their way. And so, the tale of the abandoned baby on the wagon trail came full circle. Not through grand gestures of material gain, but through acts of kindness, courage, and selflessness. In the vast expanse of the frontier, sometimes the greatest treasures weren't gold or jewels, but the connections formed between hearts willing to protect and nurture each other.